Today, we're looking at something absolutely massive, a mission that permanently altered the course of human history. We're talking about Vostok 1. This is the story of an incredible journey that took humanity across an invisible boundary, leaving our planet for the very first time to enter the vast unknown darkness of space. It's a tale that proves how the most impossible human ambitions can be realized in literally just a matter of minutes.
Just picture this for a second. Try to imagine the terrifying, claustrophobic reality of this situation. You're sitting inside a metal sphere barely bigger than a small car. There is no escape hatch. You have zero manual control over your own destiny. And right outside, well, a rocket taller than a 20-story building is rumbling beneath you, loaded with highly explosive fuel. Millions of parts have to work flawlessly, and you have absolutely no guarantee of survival. One tiny mistake, and it ends in fire. Yet one man willingly climbed aboard.
Okay, let's dive into this edge-of-your-seat journey. We're going to cover 6 chapters today. The space race heating up, choosing the perfect cosmonaut, the Vostok 1 gamble, those unbelievable 108 minutes in space, a truly terrifying re-entry, and finally, humanity's new destination.
Chapter 1, The Space Race Heats Up, the Cold War Rivalry Beyond Earth.
So, let's set the scene a bit. It's the late 1950s, a time of really intense global tension. The Cold War had just spilled over into the cosmos, and the Soviet Union completely shocked the world. In October 1957, they launched Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite. And then, just weeks later, Sputnik 2 goes up carrying Laika, the first living creature in orbit. These rapid-fire Soviet victories completely cornered the Americans. Space was the newest battlefield, and sending a human into orbit, that became a politically vital, incredibly high-stakes gamble for both nations. Whoever did it first would claim an absolutely enormous psychological victory.
Which brings us to Chapter 2, Choosing the Perfect Cosmonaut. Finding the right man for the impossible. The Soviet Union secretly kicked off a massive search. They needed someone who was an exceptional military pilot, but also mentally unbreakable. And out of hundreds of candidates, one guy stood out, Yuri Gagarin. He was just 27 years old, the son of a carpenter and a dairy farmer, and he had this remarkably calm demeanor under imaginable pressure. Plus, he had this infectious, really famous smile. To the Soviet leaders, his humble background and natural charisma made him the absolute ideal face for a brand new era of human history.
But being the face of an era, that required enduring some brutal, almost sci-fi training methods. I mean, nobody knew how a human body and mind would actually react to weightlessness. Would he panic? Would he just pass out? So they pushed Gagarin to the absolute limit. We're talking extreme centrifuge tests simulating crushing acceleration, isolation chambers to test his psychological breaking point, intense parachute jumps, and countless hours locked inside mock capsules. And through it all, he never broke.
Let's move to Chapter 3 and see how this builds. The Vostok 1 gamble, the revolutionary yet primitive machine.
Now, the vessel carrying humanity's greatest hopes was surprisingly tiny. It was only 2.3 meters in diameter. Just a primitive 5-ton metal sphere, and it was terrifyingly claustrophobic. Gagarin had almost no room to move inside, and he didn't even have a window large enough for a real panoramic view.
What's really interesting about Vostok 1 is the sealed manual controls. See, Soviet engineers were deeply afraid that weightlessness might impair a pilot's judgment. So Gagarin was essentially a passenger. He was trusting his life entirely to automated machines. The manual controls were literally locked behind a secret code that he could only punch in if there was a dire emergency.
Chapter 4, 108 Minutes in Space, Liftoff, and the View from Orbit.
All right, so it's the fateful morning of April 12, 1961, at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. The world is completely asleep. No one knows history is about to be made. Gagarin is strapped in, the hatch is sealed. 9:07 a.m., engines ignite. Flames erupt, the ground violently shakes. A thunderous roar echoes across the steppe as the massive R-7 rocket lifts off the pad. Crushing G-forces press Gagarin deep into his seat. The vibrations are intense, screaming through every single bolt of the ship, and Gagarin just shouts the word that becomes immortal, "Poyekali, let's go!"
After a few minutes, the booster stages separate. The upper stage shuts down. And then, sudden silence, complete weightlessness. Gagarin looks out of his small window, and for the very first time, a human being sees our world from the infinite darkness of space. He described a brilliant blue and white sphere, clouds swirling across continents, The profound, breathtaking awe of seeing our fragile, unmistakably curved home suspended right there in the void.
But he wasn't just up there to sightsee. Gagarin actually had a job to do. He monitored his physical condition, tested the communication arrays, ate food squeezed from tubes, and drank water. And he functioned perfectly. By performing these seemingly simple, everyday tasks, Gagarin definitively proved that humans could survive and thrive in weightlessness. He answered years of scientific doubt in just a few moments. Honestly, every time we see astronauts floating on the International Space Station today, we have to remember that it was these specific, mundane tasks that first proved it was even possible.
Chapter 5, a terrifying re-entry, the life or death crisis. Because the crucial point is, getting to space is really only half the battle.
What goes up must survive coming back down. As Vostok 1 prepares to return, disaster strikes. The service module completely fails to cleanly separate. The spacecraft starts tumbling, spinning wildly out of control, connected to the module only by these thick cables. Gagarin is violently tossed around as he plunges toward Earth. Outside, the heat shield is glowing red hot, with temperatures soaring to thousands of degrees. Finally, after agonizing minutes, the cables melt and burn away, and the capsule miraculously stabilizes.
This brilliantly illustrates the extreme lengths the Soviet Union went to during this era. To claim international aviation records, a pilot technically had to land inside their spacecraft. So, the official Soviet record confidently stated Gagarin landed safely inside his capsule. But the secret reality? Vostok was absolutely not designed for a soft landing. So, at an altitude of 7 kilometers, Gagarin ejected and descended separately via his own parachute. The Soviets kept this a closely guarded secret for years.
So Gagarin eventually floats down into a field near the Volga River. Just imagine being a local farmer and your granddaughter minding your own business, when suddenly this guy in a bright orange pressure suit and a massive white helmet drops from the sky, looking literally like an alien. Seeing their shock, Gagarin smiled and gave one of history's absolute greatest introductions. Don't be afraid, I am a Soviet citizen like you, coming from space.
Chapter 6, Humanity's New Destination, the Global Impact and Legacy.
This single orbit turned an unknown 27-year-old pilot into an instant global superstar overnight. Gagarin toured the world, greeted by massive, adoring crowds and world leaders. For the Soviet Union, this was a massive psychological and technological victory. But for the United States, it acted as a huge wake-up call. It directly accelerated America's space ambitions, leading President John F. Kennedy to commit to the Apollo moon program just weeks later. Without Vostok 1 pushing the envelope, the race to the moon might never have happened when it did.
So what did those 108 minutes actually change? Before Vostok 1, space was really nothing more than a distant dream. It was a realm confined strictly to science fiction and human imagination.
But after those 108 minutes, space became a tangible destination. Every lunar landing, every space station, it all traces its roots directly back to that tiny metal sphere. Gagarin's immense courage opened the door to the cosmos for everyone who followed. So, I leave you with this question. If Yuri Gagarin proved that the sky is no longer the limit, what is humanity's next impossible destination?